Hello people, how are you doing today? So the Indian digital asset community, or should I call it the cryptocurrency community, simply because the government has actually used that name. So it is the cryptocurrency and the regulation of official digital currency bill 2021 that has set the community ablaze with opposing discussions and lots of thoughts around that we can see. So I put the thing on Twitter that what's the fuss about it, and there have been reactions both ways. People feel that it is a positive step. Most of them feel that it is negative. So this video is primarily for discussing what my thoughts are pertaining to this proposed bill, and I've collected 10 questions from my people, my circle, regarding this thing. What are their apprehensions? What are their expectations? And I'll try to answer those 10 questions as well. So let's get started. Okay, so this cryptocurrency, first of all, I think it's a positive step that they are talking. At least the government is talking about cryptocurrency. Earlier there was this intent from the government that these are not currencies. Currencies issuance is a sovereign function. So primarily, let's not call it currency. So for the first time, I think officially they are calling it cryptocurrency, and then it talks about the regulation of the official digital currency. Now the official digital currency, as we understand from the global experiences, is primarily CBDCs, which are the central bank digital currencies. So it's interesting that the government is actually taking a step towards it. The question is the intent similar to what the other nations of the world are trying to develop? Is India also willing, as part of the digitization mechanism, with digitization drive that we have seen, the various initiatives in the fintech space? So is this a step towards that, or is it more like a prohibition or a ban? Now obviously attention has to be drawn to the fact that the mainstream media, only by the name of this bill, and there's an explanation which says that it prohibits all private cryptocurrencies. Again, it has sort of translated that into calling it outright ban. So the first question, if we take it just step by step, is this 2021 bill rather identical or similar in lines to 2019? Now this is interesting because we all know what happened in 2019. There was an outright ring fencing restriction by the Reserve Bank, and thereby the fiat to crypto and the crypto to fiat conversions actually stopped, or they were restricted. Now I feel that this is an interesting question. 2021 bill, is it similar or is it different? Apparently we don't have the draft of the bill, but this is interesting because the world is very different, the community is very different in 2021 as compared to 2019, simply because there's a magical thing that happened in 2020, in March 2020, when the Supreme Court came up with the 180-page judgment, and thereby I feel that the 2021 bill cannot override or restrict or just overlook what happened in that judgment from the Supreme Court. So I feel that while it might draw some inferences from the 2019 bill, the 2021 bill would rather respect what happened in March 2020 from the Supreme Court side. So I feel that my personal takeaway is that the 2021 bill might be maybe more mature in terms of their offerings than the 2019 bill. Now the other question that I collected was that the description of the bill is that to create a facilitative framework for creation of official digital currency issued by RBI. So what does this facilitative framework mean? Now, facilitative framework means a physical and virtual infrastructure for enablement and issuance of the central bank digital currency. Now, the question is that does this bill talk about implementation, or does this bill talk about, of course, word use is regulation. The question is that does India, as of today, have the infrastructural mechanisms or availability? Is it equipped infrastructure wise to issue a CBDC? There has been no discussion, there has been no public announcement from RBI regarding CBDCs as yet. So all of a sudden, if RBI comes up and says that, okay, we are starting to regulate an official digital currency, and that brings in some anomaly. Why? Because it's a step-by-step process. We've seen the evolution happen, say, in a small state like Wyoming in US, or where there are matured laws like UK or Australia for that matter. When we see that a country or a community or a sovereign nation wants to come up with a central bank digital currency, is it just a digitization of their currency that they're talking about? Or is it that they are changing the entire infrastructural framework primarily to add up more people by the use of technology? Ideally, I feel that the objective here should be that adding more people to the financial space, just like what the digitization drive did, and then making the Indian rupee more reachable to people by use of technology. I personally feel that currently there is no apparent signs from the government which primarily state that they have the infrastructure available for this. Obviously, infrastructure can be developed. Obviously, this is a process, cannot happen overnight. However, when we talk about regulation of official digital currency, ideally there has to be first of all creation, ensuring that the infrastructure is available, and then the regulations should happen. So I still feel that we are still some time away from the physical CBDCs in India and the implementations, the physical implementations. But this is a positive step because the government is actually thinking on these lines. The question is that what is the objective of CBDCs? What is it trying to solve? Is it more financial inclusion of people who are not part of the current banking systems? Is that the question? If that is the case, wonderful. And in that case, is the government ready with the infrastructure facilities? Wonderful. We can then contribute towards the infrastructural needs of the government, and it results in more financial inclusion. Nothing like that. So I consider this to be a positive step, that the facilitative framework is being developed or is expected to being developed, and then we see how the CBDCs get into the Indian fintech space. Okay, so then it also talks about the official digital currency. That's question number 3. So people ask, what is official digital currency? Primarily the CBDCs. Now it is also important that the government till now has not come up with any definition of CBDCs. Perhaps, yes, we can draw inferences from, say, the World Economic Forum, from the UK law, which very interestingly says that, yes, we are willing to sort of debate, discuss, and on a case-to-case basis. Of course, it's a smaller nation, 1/6 of India, so it can consider these pleas on one-to-one basis. But India, well, we are looking forward to what exactly CBDCs would cover in India. Primarily in the light of financial inclusion. So technology enablement with financial inclusion, I think that is what will culminate into development of the CBDCs. Now, the most debatable question, the 4th question that I got was that what are these private cryptocurrencies? Because it talks about, the description of the bill talks about that the bill also seeks to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India. Now, this is highly debatable because last time also in 2019 when this bill came up, and it mentioned prohibition, banning, and just like this, prohibit all private cryptocurrencies. Now the question is, what is private? Anything other than CBDC that can be private. So it means that absolutely every coin that is there on CoinMarketCap can be a private cryptocurrency. Alternatively, does it also mean that anything which the government does not recognize? In that sense, does it recognize few bills? Can it create a registration framework just like what is being created in Singapore for that matter? They've come up with Form 1 wherein you can register your exchange and get a utility versus security opinion from a Singaporean lawyer, and then you can actually register your exchange and work there. So is India saying that we are not following the Singaporean route? I feel that since this technology, the DLT, and the cryptocurrencies, I'm using the word currency simply because it's being used in the bill, primarily touches the cross-border trades. And when it touches the cross-border trades, what is important is that No one country can, and especially a democracy like India, which receives lots of remittances, inflows and outflows, can work in silos and can say that, okay, Singapore to India remittances is a very common practice in the global space. We see lots of tech companies receiving their fundraisers in Singapore, remitting it to India. Lots of those examples available. So when Singapore comes up with a framework like this and India comes up with an opposing framework, does it then restrict the flow of trade? Ideally, when we see cryptocurrencies, it surely provides an alternative solution, and I call it alternative, not a better solution, but an alternative solution to the things that we've seen, the challenges that we've seen in cross-border trades. Now, cross-border trades, imagine a small example wherein, say, a US VC fund, they simply don't invest in India. They ask you to, say, form a Delaware C Corp, and from the Delaware C Corp, you remit the funds to India. And the Indian entity primarily works as a cost center or a tech development company. So you're losing out the entire IP to the US company. So the investor is there, which is good. You raise funds, you grow your company. However, India in the long run is losing out on the IP registrations, the copyrights, which can be then centralized here in India. Of course, the laws have been sort of made easier with easier registration to startups, but I still feel that there is scope for more work there. So when we talk about cross-border, these transactions, the amount of compliances that are there for a young company is exorbitant in terms of fees, time, quantity, effort. So when we look at the other alternative, again saying that it is not a better alternative as of date, but yes, as an alternative, you can simply transfer value from one nation to another. You're talking a borderless world. Now, obviously, when you talk about a borderless world, you cannot just carve out India and say that it is sort of not part of the global trade that is happening. I feel that one of the greatest solutions that can be provided by cryptocurrencies or digital assets for that matter is a solution in cross-border trades and the payment and the receipt of remittances. Now that is one area in FEMA which we also like because the law is slightly complex there, it's broken and it talks about lots of conflicts. Now this comes up as a very breezy, cryptocurrencies come up as a very breezy and a very interesting solution. You just transfer value from one location to another. I still feel that while technologically this looks very interesting, and while the reply to our right to information in 2018-19 by the Reserve Bank stated that FEMA laws don't apply to cryptos, I still feel that while this is being discussed, the FEMA laws also require an upgrade. Because when you talk about cross-border trades and a value over $250,000 per person per year, which is the standard currently under the LRS route, if that amount is breached in a cross-border trade and later on the government might say that, okay, this has violated FEMA. The question is that it has not currently updated FEMA to include that the cryptocurrencies are currently falling under FEMA. So that law, I think no one is talking about that aspect. And I feel that going forward, that aspect might become even more bigger than the CBDCs that we are talking about currently. That is one of the best use cases, solving cross-border on-ramping, off-ramping, those kind of solutions at a global network. That is a solution that we can provide to the world. Just like I think UPI became very popular. I still feel that cross-border trades is a solution, and India being one of the countries with the highest remittances should be able to come up with a solution through cryptocurrencies to the cross-border trade anomaly. So currently there are lots of these cross-border trades that happen, and the compliances, the time and those challenges are always there. So I still feel that yes, while we talk about the private cryptocurrencies, the government should consider that there is always a scope for private cryptocurrencies to exist. One more point here is that I think when government uses words like prohibit all private cryptocurrencies, now ideally the solution that I can think of is that let's not call it currencies then again. these are private, separate asset classes that we are talking about. That's the only solution if the government goes ahead and strictly says that, okay, anything private which is a cryptocurrency, we are banning it or prohibiting it absolutely, just like what happened in 2019. In that sense, the only solution, 2 points there, the only solution that you have here is that one, we've got to fight for it, that it is a separate asset class. And two, we say that this is a on-ramping, off-ramping solution that needs to be regulated. Other than that, once it is on-ramped or once it is off-ramped, well, it should follow the standard things. Now, we feel that the most delicate attention that is needed here is the on-ramping, off-ramping thing. No one currently in India talks about on-ramping, off-ramping. Yes, there have been sort of Supreme Court saying that yes, you can operate crypto exchanges and those kind of things. However, the mannerism in which the on-ramping to the cryptocurrency highway, if I may speak so, happens versus the off-ramping that happens, I think that is where the focus, the core of the policy should be. Currently, that does not seem to be the case, but that is where the policy should be. Once you are on-ramped to the crypto highway, ideally the government should then stay out of it and say that this is a technology, used it, and then you can do, of course, with taxations and compliances and documentation regarding it, of course, you can go forward and do it. So on-ramping, off-ramping, I think is one area of attention. That's one. And second would be calling it a separate asset class. I think then we can come up with this cryptocurrency ban. Of course, security tokens require far more attention, but we can start with utility tokens and then go forward with it, just like the examples in Wyoming in US, UK and Singapore. These are three countries that we can draw inference from. Okay, then there are smaller questions like what exceptions can be allowed in promoting underlying technologies. That is one question asked out of me. I feel that yes, underlying technology, of course, the DLT and the blockchains, in that sense, the government should not have much objections to those technologies, because they actually primarily, when you talk about decentralization, it primarily kills, as I wrote it on Twitter, it primarily kills centralized corruption. So decentralization or blockchains primarily kills centralized corruption. So obviously when we talk about central point of contact, it also talks about central point of failures and central point of corruption. So from that perspective, yes, these exceptions can be allowed. However, we should not, the cryptocurrency community should not just focus about the technology that is the blockchain technology. I think we talk about, we are in India talking about, say, blockchain being beautiful and the digital assets or the cryptocurrencies not being so nicely looked upon by the government. So it is important to sort of diverge these two from that perspective and then focus, develop laws for the cryptocurrency separately and develop laws for blockchain separately. Okay, so last few questions is that what happens to the cryptocurrency exchanges and what happens to the cryptocurrency traders? Cryptocurrency exchanges and cryptocurrency traders, well, I think especially traders, I think lots of people have said that, and there's the one question there as well, should I be afraid in case the government comes up with this restriction? I still feel that the government will not come up with this retrospective law. However, it might ask you to sort of, in the worst case scenario, liquidate all your holdings, disclose your tax liabilities, and then go forward with it. However, I still feel that it should not go that way. Why? Because the Supreme Court judgment in March 2020 in India is a landmark judgment in the sense that it respects about 50 plus countries. It mentions 50 plus countries in that 180-page judgment. Now, ideally, if government just overlooks that thing and then goes forward and says that we are prohibiting everything, then the only two options available would be that calling it a separate asset class and focus on regulations on ramping and off ramping. So what are the sort of possibilities or what are the options available with cryptocurrency exchanges? I still feel that, well, as I say in earlier and other conferences as well, that well, this is a marathon. This law massively challenges the status quo. So this is a marathon, this is not a sprint. Cryptocurrency exchanges, perhaps what government can do is again restrict that on-ramping, off-ramping crypto to fiat conversions. However, they can still exist. I still feel that the focus of the policy should be on whether to allow on-ramping and how to allow it, or whether not to allow it at all. If it does not allow, then is it in violation of the Supreme Court judgment? Is it in violation, or say not in adherence and compliance with what is going on in the world? So thinking from that perspective, I still feel that India would not ideally, or should not ideally, overlook the Supreme Court judgment, overlook the amazing developments that are happening in small states like Wyoming, developed nations like Singapore, developed nations like UK and Australia. I still feel that the focus of this bill, and we are yet to there's a disclaimer that we are yet to see the draft of it. I still feel that the focus of this bill is more on CBDC, whereas what the crypto community should focus on is an expected compliance or adherence mechanism in the field of, say, FEMA, which is the cross-border thing. Second, on-ramping, off-ramping, even within India and outside India. And third, allowing a new technology to reach out the masses, that is using decentralization to reach out to masses for financial inclusion. So I still feel that we should look forward to this bill. Yes, there are challenges, words like prohibition of private cryptocurrencies. Those do raise certain nervousness and concerns. However, I still feel that no industry can operate for very long in a self-governance mode or a no regulation mode. We should rather expect, and we should rather appreciate the government thinking about this community, and the government coming up with some solutions about this community. Good or bad, we are good to debate with the government, then go forward with it. So I take this bill as a positive step towards the rightful regulations. It may not be the most perfect regulations to start off with. You don't expect government to say that, okay, wonderful, you can just do anything that you want. That is not what we want. What this bill is doing is putting a step in the direction that the crypto community traders should be more regulated. They should sort of follow a common mechanism, which is in parlance with the expectation of the government in terms of compliances, taxation, documentation for that matter. They should know what transactions are going on. And I also feel that the cryptocurrency exchanges should standardize the compliance documents, disclosure documents by selling and everything that can be standardized, just like stock exchanges do it in contract notes and others. There's a strict regulations there. So we can maybe borrow some regulations from that perspective and then go forward with it. I still feel we should positively welcome this bill and then debate once the bill is either tabled or the draft of the bill is out. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.